On my birthday, my son slapped me for asking him to pay rent. Someone filmed it, it went viral, and he lost his job. If you're watching this, subscribe to this channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The cake sat in the center of the table, its candles unlit, waiting for a celebration that felt more like an obligation than a joy. 62 years old today, 35 years as a school secretary, 3 years into retirement, and still setting the table for others before myself. I smoothed the wrinkles from the tablecloth, the same one I'd used for every birthday since Richard died 8 years ago. The house creaked above me. Another reminder of the leaking roof I couldn't afford to fix. $4,800 was the quote. The letter sat on my counter like a ticking bomb. "Mom, where's my beer?" Tyler's voice boomed through the house before I even saw him. My son, 38, living in my back house for 5 years since his divorce, still expecting me to stock his favorite drinks. I got what I could afford. "Sweetie," I said, my voice automatically dropping to the appeasing tone I'd perfected over decades, first with my father, then with Richard, now with my son. "Jesus, it's the one thing I asked for." He sighed dramatically, checking his expensive watch. The new one. The one that probably cost more than I made in a month of my working life. Dorothy, my neighbor and only real friend, shot me a look across the room. "Say something," her eyes urged. She'd been telling me for years that Tyler was taking advantage. I always defended him. That's what mothers do. The small group gathered awkwardly. Church friends, Dorothy, and Tyler, who spent more time on his phone than acknowledging my birthday. I watched him bite into the food I'd spent all day preparing, then grimace slightly. "A little dry, Mom." I felt something unfamiliar stir inside me as I looked at his designer shirt, remembered the roof, thought of the emptied retirement account I'd used to help him through his divorce. "Tyler," I said, surprised at my own voice, "I need to talk to you about contributing to the household expenses, especially now with your promotion." The room went silent. "You're charging me rent on your birthday?" His laugh was cruel. "That's rich." "You make more than I ever did," I continued, my voice trembling but not stopping. "You bought a new car last month while I'm driving a 12-year-old sedan. I just need a little help." The sound came before I registered the movement. His palm connected with my cheek with enough force to knock my head sideways. The sting spread across my face as time seemed to stop. "You should be grateful I still visit you," Tyler hissed. I touched my cheek, the red mark forming under my fingers. No one moved, no one spoke, except Dorothy, who gasped softly. What none of us knew was that Amber, Tyler's girlfriend of 3 months, stood in the doorway, her phone raised, recording everything. Tyler grabbed his keys and stormed out, laughing loudly moments later, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I sat alone in the darkened kitchen after everyone left, except Dorothy, who silently washed dishes beside me. "Eleanor," she finally said, "this can't continue." I nodded, tears streaming down my face, the weight of decades of silence suddenly unbearable. The blinking light of my answering machine greeted me the next morning. 3 messages from Dorothy. 1 from an unknown number. Tyler hadn't come home to the back house last night. My ancient computer hummed as I logged into my rarely used email account. A new message from Amber Stevens sat at the top of my inbox. "Mrs. Watson, we've never formally met, but I'm, or was, Tyler's girlfriend. What I witnessed last night was unforgivable. I've attached the video I recorded. I haven't taken any action with him yet, but I think you need to see how your son truly behaves. Please call me if you want to talk." My hands shook as I clicked play. The video was only 30 seconds long, but seeing it from outside myself was like watching a stranger's life. My stunned expression, the bright red mark forming on my aging skin, the cold fury in Tyler's eyes that I hadn't fully registered in the moment. When the phone rang, I answered without thinking. "Mrs. Watson, it's Amber. Please call me Eleanor," I said automatically, still staring at the frozen image on my screen. "I broke up with Tyler last night after seeing what he did," she said, her voice young but steady. "He tried to justify it, saying you were being manipulative, but I grew up watching my dad treat my mom that way. I know the signs." She explained that after a night of reflection, she'd posted the video to her private account to warn her friends about Tyler's behavior, but one friend had shared it publicly. "It's starting to spread," she said apologetically. "I'm worried about your safety." My phone beeped with incoming calls from unknown numbers. Dorothy's texts multiplied. The video was gaining traction rapidly. "I'm so sorry about your privacy," Amber continued. "But I couldn't just—" The front door slammed open. Tyler stood there, face contorted with rage. His phone extended toward me, showing the video that now had thousands of views. "What did you do?" he roared. I should have cowered. That's what I'd always done. With my father, with Richard, with Tyler himself just yesterday. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar straighten my spine as I held the phone with Amber still on the line. "I didn't do anything, Tyler," I said quietly. "But you did. Excuse me, aren't you the woman from that video?" I froze in the cereal aisle, my shopping basket suddenly heavy in my hands. 3 days had passed since the incident. The video, titled "Man Slaps Elderly Mother When She Asks for Financial Help," had reached millions of views. The older woman beside me touched my arm gently. "I just want you to know, my sister went through something similar. You're not alone." She squeezed my arm and moved on before I could respond. Dorothy was waiting on my porch when I returned home, her face pinched with concern. She showed me her tablet. The video had spread to multiple platforms, sparking discussions about elder abuse and toxic family dynamics. "Some people have identified Tyler," she said carefully. "His company released a statement saying they're investigating the incident." As if summoned by his name, Tyler burst through the front door, more furious than I'd ever seen him. "They suspended me!" He threw his phone onto the couch. "Pending investigation. Are you happy now? Was this your plan all along?" "I didn't post that video," I said quietly. "You've always done this, played the victim to control me." He stepped toward me aggressively. Dorothy moved between us. "Back off. Tyler, or I'm calling the police." For the first time in my life, I didn't try to smooth things over. A strange calm settled over me. "Tyler, you need to leave my house. Today." The shock on his face was almost comical. He'd never imagined his doormat mother would finally set a boundary. He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sank onto the couch, trembling, but somehow lighter. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with another unknown number. "Mrs. Watson, this is Marlene Cooper, an attorney specializing in elder rights. I saw the video and wanted to reach out. Several viewers have started a fundraising campaign to help you. It's not a fortune, but it's past $3,000 and still growing. Many people identified with your situation." I couldn't speak for a moment. That's very kind, but I'd also like to offer my services pro bono if you need a restraining order," she continued. "What happened to you shouldn't happen to anyone." That evening, I sat on the porch watching Tyler remove some belongings from the back house. Each item he carried to his car felt like a weight lifting from my shoulders. After a lifetime of submission, the possibility of saying no felt terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The attic was stuffy and thick with dust, and 2 weeks had passed since Tyler left, and the online campaign had raised $8,500, enough for the essential roof repairs. The workers would arrive tomorrow, so I needed to clear access to the attic. In the far corner, behind Christmas decorations and old suitcases, sat a box I hadn't opened in years. My mother's things. Margaret had died when I was 15, leaving me alone with my father's cold discipline. I pulled the box toward me, coughing as dust scattered in the dim light. Inside were letters and journals I'd been too afraid to read as a teenager, afraid my father would find them. I sank to the floor, opening the brittle journal to a random page. April 18th, 1973. I've hidden another $20 in the lining of my winter coat. $340 saved now. 2 more months, and Eleanor and I can leave. She deserves a life without fear, without his constant criticism. I will not let her become what I've become, a shadow of a person, always apologizing for existing. My hands trembled. My mother had been planning to leave? I'd spent my entire life believing she had accepted her situation, just as I had accepted mine. I flipped through more pages, discovering a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew. My mother had been saving money secretly, making arrangements for us to escape, but she died unexpectedly of pneumonia before we could leave. Between the pages, I found a sealed envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter never delivered. "My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, we've made it out. Or perhaps I found the courage to give you this before we left. Either way, remember this. Don't live as I lived. Don't mistake love for submission. You deserve more, my darling. Your loving mother." Tears splashed onto the yellowed paper. I'd spent my entire life repeating my mother's pattern, first with my father, then with Richard, now allowing Tyler to treat me the same way. Dorothy found me crying in the attic. I showed her the letter, and she nodded sadly. I always suspected there was more to her story, she said gently. I came of age in a time when many women suffered in silence. She helped me down from the attic, her hand steady on my arm. It's not too late for you, Eleanor, she said. Your mother never got her chance to change her story. You have yours now. That night, I framed my mother's letter and placed it beside my bed, a constant reminder that I had a choice. As I plugged in my phone to charge, a text message appeared from Amber. Just checking on you. Hope you're okay. The beginning of an unlikely friendship. Hold still, Gloria instructed, adjusting the scarf around my neck. There. The blue brings out your eyes. I barely recognized myself in the library bathroom mirror. 2 months had transformed not just my home but me as well. With the fundraiser money, I'd fixed the roof and made small improvements to the house. I'd painted the living room a vibrant yellow that Richard had always vetoed, removed photos where I appeared diminished, and rearranged furniture for my comfort, not others. You look like a writer, Gloria said approvingly. My creative writing instructor at the local library had become a fast friend, treating me with dignity rather than the pity I'd feared after the video. I don't feel like one yet, I admitted. Nonsense. That piece you wrote last week had the whole class in tears. She squeezed my shoulder. You have a voice, Eleanor. It was just waiting for you to use it. Back home, I found another manipulative text from Tyler. He alternated between angry accusations and false apologies when he realized he'd lost his safety net. His new job paid significantly less, and he was struggling to maintain the lifestyle he'd grown accustomed to. I left the message unanswered and instead opened my laptop to continue the writing assignment Gloria had given us. A letter to our younger selves. Dear young Eleanor, you will spend decades believing your worth lies in how well you serve others. You will shrink yourself to avoid disapproval. You will mistake silence for peace. But one day, you will discover that your voice matters, that setting boundaries isn't selfish, that the people who truly love you want you to stand tall, not kneel at their feet. My phone rang, interrupting my flow. Marlene, my attorney, called weekly to check in and update me on legal matters. She'd become another unexpected ally in my transformation. Eleanor, how are you feeling about speaking at the senior center next week? She asked. No pressure, but your story has resonated with so many people. The old Eleanor would have declined immediately, terrified of public attention, but I found myself saying, I think I'm ready. After we hung up, I checked my email and found a strange message from someone named Claire Bennett, claiming to have important information about Richard that I should know. Initially skeptical, I almost deleted it, but something in the formal tone intrigued me. After hesitating for a long moment, I replied suggesting we meet in a public place. As I hit send, I realized I was no longer the woman who would have been too afraid to discover an uncomfortable truth. The coffee shop buzzed with afternoon customers. I'd asked Dorothy to come with me for support, and she sat beside me, her presence reassuring as we waited for Claire Bennett. When she arrived, I nearly gasped. The professional, well-dressed woman in her early 40s had Richard's eyes and chin, a resemblance impossible to miss. Mrs. Watson, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for meeting me. Claire explained that she'd seen the viral video and recognized our family name and address from what she already knew. I'm Richard's daughter from a previous relationship, she said, placing a manila envelope on the table. One you were never told about. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside were photos and documents proving what seemed impossible. Throughout our entire marriage, Richard had maintained a secret second family, visiting and financially supporting Claire and her mother. He told us you knew, Claire said, her voice tight, that you were controlling and prevented him from seeing me regularly. I grew up resenting you. Now I realize he lied to both of us. The revelation of decades of betrayal should have destroyed me. Instead, I felt an odd clarity. This explained the business trips, the unexplained expenses, the controlling way Richard had managed our finances. There's more, Claire continued, sliding a document across the table. He promised me your house in his will, a promise he never fulfilled, thankfully. But I found evidence he diverted a significant portion of your joint savings to accounts in my name. Approximately $175,000 that legally should have been partially yours. I'm not here for that money, she clarified quickly. After discovering how he manipulated us both, I want to help right this wrong. Dorothy squeezed my hand under the table as Claire continued. I work in public relations. Years ago, I briefly crossed paths with Tyler when he interned at Richard's company, though neither of us knew we were half-siblings. By the end of our meeting, Claire and I had formed an unexpected connection based on our shared experience as victims of Richard's manipulation. We agreed to consult Marlene about the legal possibilities of recovering the diverted funds. It won't be quick or easy, Marlene warned when we called her from the cafe, but it's definitely possible. And Claire's testimony strengthens your case considerably. As we parted, Claire hugged me impulsively. I spent years hating a woman who never existed, she said. I'm glad to finally meet the real Eleanor. For me, this discovery wasn't just about money. It was about decades of gaslighting and financial control that Richard had exercised, a pattern I now recognized Tyler had learned from his father. He used your name constantly during our marriage, Jessica said, stirring her tea nervously. Claimed you were sick or needed money. I see now they were lies to cover his spending. 3 months had passed since meeting Claire when I received a call from Jessica, Tyler's ex-wife. She'd seen the viral video months ago, but only now found the courage to contact me. We sat in my newly painted living room alongside Amber, who had maintained regular contact and become a supportive friend. I believed everything he said about you, Jessica continued, that you were manipulative and needy. It wasn't until I left that I realized he was describing himself. She shared documents from their divorce, revealing how Tyler had controlled their finances, isolated her socially, and used intimidation to secure favorable terms when she finally left. Among the papers, I discovered something alarming. Tyler had apparently used my address and forged my signature to obtain a $35,000 loan 2 years ago, leaving me as the responsible party. This explained the strange collection calls I occasionally received, which Tyler insisted were mistakes. That's fraud, Amber said bluntly. Concerned about the legal implications, I consulted Marlene, who recommended hiring Howard Jenkins, a former police officer specializing in financial fraud investigations. Howard began discreetly investigating and uncovered that Tyler's pattern was more extensive than we imagined. He had financially manipulated various people, including former friends and colleagues, and had nearly been prosecuted for fraud at his previous job. Most shocking was Howard's discovery that Tyler had been planning to convince me to transfer the house to his name for tax protection, with documents already prepared that I'd never seen. He's methodical, Howard explained, spreading evidence across my kitchen table where Eleanor, Jessica, Amber, Claire, and Dorothy gathered. He identifies vulnerabilities and exploits them systematically. Why didn't I see it? I whispered, though I knew the answer. I'd been conditioned my entire life to doubt my perceptions and prioritize others' needs above my own. Howard's kind eyes met mine. Manipulators target people with good hearts, he said, and they're experts at making their victims feel responsible. As our meeting concluded, Howard lingered behind. You're handling this with remarkable strength, he said, his respect evident in a way I'd rarely experienced from a man. I don't feel strong, I admitted. That's because strength doesn't always feel powerful in the moment, he replied. Sometimes it's just continuing to stand when everything tells you to collapse. For the first time in months, I felt tears form, not from pain or fear, but from the simple recognition of my own resilience. You need to understand something, Eleanor, Howard said as we sat on my porch watching the summer sunset. This isn't about failing as a mother. Over the past 2 months, as Howard continued his meticulous investigation, I'd been exploring in my writing classes how my own submission had enabled Tyler's behavior to escalate. The real failure would be continuing to allow his behavior without consequences, Howard continued. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries. We'd developed a friendship based on mutual respect. During long conversations, Howard shared his own story of being deceived by a business partner, losing almost everything and having to rebuild his life at 50. This shared vulnerability created a bond between us. I've gathered substantial evidence, Howard explained, opening his worn leather portfolio, enough to pursue legal action for the fraudulent loan and identity theft. But the question is, what do you want the outcome to be? That evening, I gathered a small group in my living room: Marlene, Claire, Jessica, Amber, Dorothy, and Howard. Together, We crafted a plan not to destroy Tyler, but to make him face the consequences of his actions and potentially change his path. I don't want vengeance, I explained to the group. I want accountability. I want Tyler to see what he's doing to his life and to others. I want him to have the chance I'm having now, to change. Our plan had multiple layers. Marlene would handle legal matters related to the fraudulent loan. Claire would use her media contacts to ensure the complete story was told sensitively. Jessica and Amber would provide documented testimonies about Tyler's manipulation patterns. Howard would continue gathering legally admissible evidence. This isn't about punishing Tyler for punishment's sake, I insisted. It's about responsibility and, maybe, redemption. As our meeting concluded, I felt a strange peace. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to life happening to me. I was actively shaping my future. I sent Tyler a simple text. We need to talk about the future. Not just yours or mine, but ours. Sunday, 2 p.m., my house. His reply came almost instantly. Finally coming to your senses? I knew you couldn't stay mad forever. I showed Howard the message, and he shook his head. He still thinks this is a game he can win. It's not a game at all, I replied. And there are no winners or losers, just truth. Tyler arrived exactly at 2, his confident smile faltering as he entered my transformed home. His eyes darted around the bright yellow walls, the rearranged furniture, the absence of the old family photos where he always stood center stage. Mom, he began, his voice smooth as butter. You look great. I've been so worried. His facade crumbled when he stepped into the living room and found not just me, but all the people he'd manipulated gathered together. Claire, whom he recognized from his brief time at Richard's company. Amber, Jessica, and 2 former colleagues he'd financially harmed. What is this? He demanded, his charm instantly replaced by defensive anger. Please sit down, Tyler, I said calmly. We're here to talk. I didn't allow the meeting to become an attack. Instead, each person simply shared their experience with Tyler, the facts, without accusations, and how his actions had affected them. When Tyler tried to deny, manipulate, or deflect, Howard methodically presented the evidence. Documents, messages, audio recordings, the fraudulent loan, the plans to take my house. This is ridiculous, Tyler sputtered, looking from face to face for an ally and finding none. You're all conspiring against me because of some stupid video. The most powerful moment came when I showed Tyler my mother Margaret's diary and her letter to me. I traced the line of abuse and submission through generations. Your grandfather did this to your grandmother. Your father did this to me. And now you're doing this to the women in your life. When does it end, Tyler? Cornered by undeniable truth, Tyler initially reacted with defensive anger, then tried to manipulate the situation. And finally, when none of his usual tactics worked, fell into awkward silence. We have enough evidence to initiate legal proceedings that would have serious consequences for you, I explained gently. But we're offering another path, consistent therapy, a restitution plan for everyone you've harmed, and the chance to break this destructive cycle. The choice is yours. And if I refuse? Tyler challenged, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Then we proceed legally, Marlene stated simply. The evidence is substantial. Tyler stood abruptly. I need to think. Take a week, I said. This isn't an impulse decision. As Tyler left, not with rage but contemplative silence, I felt exhausted but at peace. Howard stayed behind, offering the kind of support I'd never experienced from a man before. Without expectations, just genuine respect. Whatever he decides, Howard said quietly, you've already won by reclaiming your life. I stared at the envelope in my hands, Tyler's handwriting unmistakable across the front. 6 months had passed since our confrontation, each day bringing small resolutions. Marlene had successfully begun the process to nullify the fraudulent loan due to proven forgery. Though the banking and legal procedures moved slowly, the process to recover part of the money diverted by Richard also progressed, with Claire insisting that I deserved the larger portion. Amber and Jessica, inspired by my transformation, started a support group for people leaving manipulative relationships. Most surprisingly, Tyler had chosen the harder path. He accepted my proposal and began intensive therapy alongside a financial education program. The process was painful and non-linear. There were relapses, moments of anger and denial, but also genuine glimpses of insight and change. He found a small apartment and a modest job, starting from scratch. I continued my writing course, now working on memoirs exploring intergenerational abuse dynamics. My teacher encouraged me to consider publication, something I never would have thought possible before. Howard became a constant presence, helping with small house repairs and sharing tea in the garden. Our friendship evolved naturally over the months into something deeper, with both of us carefully navigating the unfamiliar territory of a healthy relationship in our later years. I finally opened Tyler's letter, not manipulative or emotional, but honest and direct. He attached the first payment of a restitution plan for me, with the promise to continue and a reflection on his progress in therapy. I don't expect quick or easy forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm finally listening, not just to your words, but to the truth about myself. Later that evening, Howard and I sat on the porch swing he'd installed last month. "Have you decided about the book offer?" he asked, referring to the small local publisher interested in my memoir. "I think I'm going to accept," I said, surprising myself with my confidence. "If my story helps even one person recognize these patterns, it's worth sharing." Howard's hand found mine in the gathering twilight. "You've already helped more than one," he said softly. As if on cue, my phone chimed with a message from Claire. "Just got the final settlement papers from Marlene. $120,000 recovered from Richard's accounts. Justice is slow, but it comes." For the first time in my life, I felt not just financially secure, but emotionally whole. The journey wasn't over. Healing never really ends, but I'd found my voice, my boundaries, and my worth, and in the process, discovered that it's never too late to begin again. The cake sat in the center of the table, its candles flickering brightly, waiting for a celebration that felt, for the first time in decades, like a genuine joy. 63 years old today. My house was full of people who truly valued me. Dorothy, Marlene, Claire, who now considered me a positive maternal figure. Amber and Jessica, who had become close friends through their shared experience. My colleagues from the writing group. And Howard, whose friendship had gradually evolved into a respectful and affectionate relationship. Tyler was present, a more subdued and reflective presence. After a year of consistent therapy and hard work to change his patterns, he was still far from a complete transformation, but showed genuine signs of progress. "Mom," he said, presenting a leather-bound album, "this is from all of us." Inside were letters from people who had been helped by my public story, which Claire had helped responsibly publicize. Women and men who found courage to leave abusive relationships. Adult children who reassessed how they treated their elderly parents. People who recognized manipulation patterns in their own lives. "Your book did this," Tyler said quietly, referring to my memoir that had been published by a small local press. "You're changing lives." The legal case related to Richard's money had finally resulted in a settlement. I would receive $120,000 of the diverted funds, giving me genuine financial security for the first time in my life. In a private moment in the garden, Howard formalized our relationship, not with a traditional proposal, but with a promise of genuine partnership based on mutual respect. "You've shown me what courage really looks like," he said, his weathered hands holding mine. "I never thought I'd find this kind of connection at our age." Inside the house, watching through the window, Tyler commented to Claire how he'd never seen his mother so radiant. "Because now she lives for herself, not just for others," Claire replied. Later, when the party ended, and only the closest remained, I found one last gift left discreetly, a bound edition of my mother Margaret's diary, with a note from Tyler. "So her story isn't forgotten, and so yours continues to inspire others." I sat on the porch at sunset, the book in my lap, Howard serenely by my side. I reflected on the extraordinary journey that a terrible moment had triggered. The slap that was meant to silence me had ended up freeing my voice. "Life rarely gives us what we expect," I told Howard, "but it always gives us the chance to become who we should be." When Dorothy asked what I wished for when blowing out the candles this year, I smiled. That we all continue learning to choose love with respect, not love with submission. In the soft evening light, surrounded by my chosen family, I finally understood what my mother had tried to tell me all those years ago. The shadows of silence had lifted, and in their place was something I'd never dared to imagine, a life that was fully, unquestionably mine. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.